Chapter 24. And Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem, and called the elders of Israel, and for their heads, and for their judges, and for their officers, and they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said unto all the people, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, Your fathers dwelt of old time beyond the river, even Terah, and the father of Abraham, and the father of Nahor, and they served other gods. And I took your father Abraham from beyond the river, and led him throughout all the land of Canaan, and multiplied his seed, and give him Isaac. And I gave unto Isaac Jacob and Esau. And I gave unto Esau Mount Seir to possess it, and Jacob and his children went down into Egypt. And I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt, according to that which I did in the midst thereof, and afterward I brought you out. And I brought your fathers out of Egypt, and you came unto the sea. And the Egyptians pursued after your fathers, with chariots and with horsemen, unto the Red Sea. And when they cried out unto the Lord, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians, and brought the sea upon them, and covered them. And your eyes saw what I did in Egypt, and you dwelt in the wilderness many days. And I brought you into the land of the Amorites that dwelt beyond the Jordan, and they fought with you, and I gave them into your hand. And you possessed their land, and I destroyed them from before you. Then Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, arose and fought against Israel, and he sent and called Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you. But I would not hearken unto Balaam. Therefore he even blessed you, so I delivered you out of his hand. And you went over the Jordan, and came unto Jericho. And the men of Jericho fought against you, the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Girgashite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. I delivered them into your hand. And I set the hornet before you, which drove them out from before you, even the 2 kings of the Amorites, not with your sword nor with your bow. And I gave you a land whereon you hast not labored, and cities which you built not, and you dwell therein. Of vineyards and olive yards, which you planted not, do you eat. Now therefore fear the Lord, and serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served beyond the river, and in Egypt, and serve you the Lord. And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And the people answered and said, Far be it from us that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For the Lord our God is he that has brought us and our fathers up out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, and that did great signs in our sight, and preserved us in all the way wherein we went, and among all the peoples through the midst of whom we passed. And the Lord drove out from before us all the peoples, even the Amorites that dwelt in the land. Therefore we also will serve the Lord, for he is our God. And Joshua said unto the people, You cannot serve the Lord, for he is holy God. He is a jealous God, and he will not forgive your transgressions nor your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve strange gods, then he will turn and do you evil, and consume you after that he hath done you good. And the people said unto Joshua, Nay, but we will serve the Lord. And Joshua said unto the people, You are witnesses against yourselves, that you have chosen you, the Lord, to serve him. And they said, We are witnesses. Now therefore put away the strange gods which are among you, and incline your heart unto the Lord, the God of Israel. And the people said unto Joshua, The Lord our God will we serve, and unto his voice will we hearken. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day, and set them a statute and an ordinance in Shechem. And Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God. And he took a great stone, and set it up there under the oak that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. And Joshua said unto the people, Behold, this stone shall be a witness against us, for it hath heard all the words of the Lord which he spoke unto us. It shall be therefore a witness against you, lest you deny your God. So Joshua sent the people away, every man unto his inheritance. And it came to pass after these things, that Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. And they buried him in the border of his inheritance, in Timnath-serah, which is in the hill country of Ephraim, on the north of the mountain of Gaash. And Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, and had known all the work of the Lord that he had wrought in Israel. And the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up out of Egypt, buried they in Shechem, in the parcel of ground which Jacob bought of the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of money, and they became the inheritance of the children of Joseph. And Eleazar the son of Aaron died, and they buried him in the hill country of Phinehas his son. They buried him in the hill of Phinehas his son, which was given him in the mount of Ephraim. Okay, let's go back up here to verse 1. And Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem, and called for the elders of Israel, for their heads, and their judges, and for their officers. And they presented themselves before God. And we'll find Joshua, as we did in the last chapter, has gathered all the people, and I ain't real sure that this ain't the same day that was spoke of in the last chapter, and they've gathered here. And we're going to find out later that they bury the bones of Joseph here, and this may be just the occasion that brought them here, that we are all gathering together for. I would not swear to this, neither can I prove it, but it seems that this may be the indication. Verse 2. And Joshua said unto all the people, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, Your fathers dwelt of old time beyond the river, even Terah, the father of Abraham and the father of Nahor, and they served other gods. And we're going to find here, verse 2, that all the people are gathered there, the heads, officers, everybody's there. And Joshua's going to speak, and Joshua's actually speaking instead of God here, God speaking for God, Joshua having been granted the authority to do so by God himself and Moses there in the tent. And he speaks on behalf of God, and what they're going to do, God is actually going to call to remembrance now a little bit of the history and basically a summary, so to speak, of up to this point throughout Joshua's life. And he said, Thus saith the Lord your God of Israel, Your fathers dwelt of old time beyond the river. And this river, if we look this river up, this river is actually in the land of the floods. This would be where Noah was, this land of the floods, this where Noah built his ark, and Noah survived the flood, see. And Terah is a direct descendant of Noah, and he is the father of Nahor, and Nahor is the father of Abraham. And if we could read the book of Jasher, and we will read the book of Jasher, we're going to do it. First we're going to get through the Old Testament, and then we're going to include some of the information we would find in Jasher. We would find this story of Nahor and his gods written there, and what Abraham does to this, and how Abraham come out of this with some understanding this is how God brought Abraham out, this story, and we're going to save that story till we get there. You can go read it for yourself. It's in the book of Jasher. Verse 3, And I took your father, Abraham, from beyond the river, and led him throughout all the land of Canaan, and multiplied his seed, and gave him Isaac. And this land of Canaan would be the land that would be settled by these sons of Noah. And Abraham, now being several generations later, and their children have inhabited this land, the children of Noah. And Abraham has been brought out of that land of the floods. Him and we would find that in Jasher he would bring his father out later. Abraham being brought forth by God himself out of this land of idolatry, where they had many gods. Verse 4, And I gave unto Isaac Jacob and Esau, and I gave unto Esau Mount Seir to possess it, and Jacob his children went down into Egypt. In verse 4 we would find here that this basically tells what happened. Isaac's the son of Abraham, and he had two sons, Jacob and Esau. Esau would translate the hairy, but its root means to have built, to build in the past tense, or to have built, to have erected, to, or any intent of that. And I gave unto him Mount Seir. And of course, you can, when we translate Mount Seir, we'll find that it means that shaggy or hairy, but its root is fear. It's the Mount of Fear. So he gave unto Esau the building of the Mount of Fear. And he sent Jacob and his children down into Egypt. And Egypt is the house or the land of holes. This land, I call it the land of holes. It's actually going to be the land of enclosures. Verse 5. And I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt, according to that which I did in the midst thereof. And afterward I brought you out. And we would remember from the Exodus that Moses and Aaron would be responsible for helping to lead the children out. Moses is the one drawn from, and Aaron means enlightened, the enlightened one. Egypt, once again, being the house of holes, I like to call it, or the not the house of holes so much as the land of holes, this land of enclosures, this land of prisons. And we would find out that God did do great things there. He sent not only plagues, sent signs and wonders. We're moving on to verse 6. And I brought your fathers out of Egypt, and you came unto the sea, and the Egyptians pursued after your fathers the chariots with chariots and with horsemen unto the Red Sea. And we would find that these are the armies of the Egyptians, or those from the land of closures, those from the land of holes, pursued after your fathers with their armies. And they pursued unto the Red Sea. And this Red Sea would better be translated the Reed Sea, the Sea of Reeds. And this Sea of Reeds, these reeds, is where the Egyptians would make papyrus, paper, and they would record there on their paper words of men. And we would find this evidence of this in their hieroglyphs. They would use these papyrus to make boats to travel across the seas. And this would be the symbolism of this, the transferring information across the sea. And there, 7, and when they cried out unto the Lord, because they was enclosed by the Red Sea, the Reed Sea, they could not get past this sea of knowledge, this sea of understanding that they was trapped in by those from the land of enclosures. And they cried unto the Lord, and he put darkness between you and the Egyptians, and brought the sea upon them, and covered them. And your eyes saw what I did in Egypt, and you dwelled in the wilderness many days. And we would find here in verse 7 that that's what happened. God brought the Egyptians, Pharaoh and all of his men, and he put darkness between the children of Israel and the Egyptians. So what God did was he put darkness between the Egyptians. They traveled in the darkness, and God caused great darkness and confusion over those Egyptians, those of the land of enclosures. And he brought the sea upon them. And this sea would later be the understanding of the Word of God, those who will follow his law and do after his commandments. They will be granted this understanding. They awaken from this darkness that was set on them. And this waters overcome them, this truth overcome those of idolatry, the sea of understanding, and they are taken in the flood. But those who have went across on dry ground, under the understanding of God, God parts this sea, and his children go forth on dry ground, and the waters do not cover them when they return. Even these waters that descend when they return and go out of their banks, we'll find this when they cross the Jordan. Your eyes saw what I did in Egypt. See? And they did see this great miracle. For these are the prophecies of the end. And you dwelled in the wilderness many days. And this word here, where the wilderness is, we can check this word out. And if we take it back to the root, we're going to find out this is as a flock being led as a warning. So this is the first sign we get that this is the flock of God, and he's going to use them as a warning unto all the world. Verse 8, and I brought you unto the land of the Amorites that dwelt beyond the Jordan, and they fought with you, and I gave them into your hand, and you possessed their land, and I destroyed them from before you. And the Amorites, this word means sayer or speaker, as in an enchanter. And they dwelt beyond the Jordan, where those waters that descend. And they fought with you, and they did, and they do. And I gave them into your hand, and you possessed their land, this land that they would have built up already, this place of cities and vineyards. Verse 9, then Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, arose and fought against Israel. And he sent and called Balaam, the son of Beor, to curse you. And we would find here that this is what happened when they come to the land of Moab, that the king, Balak, he was the son of Zippor, and Zippor was the king of Moab. And Moab means of his father, because he was and Moab was the children of Lot. Lot was one who they had to actually carry Lot out of the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. Zippor means fowl, or an airborne creature, this creature of the air. And Balak is the devastator. So Balak is the son of this creature of the air. And he arose and he fought against Israel, and he called for Balaam, the son of Beor. And Beor means burning, as if you would burn something. And Balaam means not of the people. And he's not a person. He's a false prophet. And they called for Balaam to come down and prophesy against the son, or against the children of Israel. But Balaam, the false prophet, the son of the one who burns, could not speak against the children of Israel. His mouth was turned into a blessing. We would find that this is what happens in the end time, how the false prophet, who's been teaching ignorance all this time, and the law becoming the stone and the foundation which all has been established, is scraped off and made bare, and their foundation required. This is the end time. This is the prophecies that we would find. Verse 10, but I would not hearken unto Balaam, therefore he even blessed you, so I delivered you out of his hand. And that's basically what we would have found, that God caused Balaam to only prophesy good things, and God delivered him out of the hand of the false prophet. Verse 11, and you went over the Jordan, and came unto Jericho, and the men of Jericho fought against you, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Girgashite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, and I delivered them into your hand. And God did. They fought against all these nations being the descendants of Noah, those that had the covenant, those that was under the covenant, and the ark of God that was in the ark. And the waters of Jericho, when they came down and crossed over them, how they was cut off by the feet of the priest when they entered in. And as soon as these priests drawed their feet up out of the waters, they began to sin again. We would find this would be the floods of the end of time. The priest and all these false teachers that have been in the world, these Balaams, how God has used this to create a devoted thing which we will destroy in the end by the truth, by the law of God going forth, the obedience to it. And the men of Jericho, this lesser light, this means its moon. Jericho means its moon. If we would go back to Genesis, we would find that this moon was set there to rule the darkness. These men did fight against it. But we will find that the children of Israel overcome, because God goes before them fighting. It's the obedience to God's word that does bring this forth. Mighty army laying in wait, waiting for this hour. 12. And I sent the hornet before you, which drove them out from before you, even the 2 kings of the Amorites, not with your sword, nor with your bow. And we'll find this story was left out of the canon, which they give us to study from. This story was left out. But what these hornets represent is pestilence and skin disease and all manners of boil. And we'll find this written later, that God does send this before the children of Israel, and he did send this. Verse 13, and I gave you land whereon you hadst not labored, in cities which you built not, and you dwelled therein, of vineyards and olive yards which you planted not, do you eat. And we would find that this would be the situation that happened when they took these lands over and conquered these cities. They didn't build these cities. They just went in and inhabited them. Several of them they destroyed for prophecy. Several of them they destroyed because they were commanded to, on the other side of the river, to destroy certain number of cities, and certain cities they did destroy. All these cities of the ones west of the Jordan, they destroyed, because they were a devoted thing unto God. 14, now therefore fear the Lord, and serve him in sincerity and in truth. Put away the gods which your fathers served beyond the river, and in Egypt. Serve you the Lord. And this is what God's asking you to do. To serve him in sincerity and in truth. Obey the law. Love the Lord your God, who showed you all these things. Who brought your fathers out of this land that was taken by the floods, and out of this land of holes, this land of enclosures. This represents the prisons that people are in today by the teachings of men, the idolatry that runs rampant in the earth. This what was overtaken by the floods of truth in the end. Verse 15, and if it seems evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods of your fathers served that were beyond the river, or of the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we serve the Lord. And this is where I'm at today, see. I serve the Lord, me and my house. We don't serve those gods, these of sticks and stones, that were swept away in the river and the floods. We don't serve those gods of sticks and stones. Neither do we serve the gods of the Amorites, the sayers, these speakers and chanters of words. We don't serve their gods either. I serve the Lord my God, the giver of the law, the fiery law. And this law and this do I serve my God, in my obedience to the law. And the people answered and said, far be it from us that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For the Lord our God, he it is that brought us and our fathers up out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, and that did those great signs in our sight, and preserved us in all the way wherein we went, and among the peoples through the midst of whom we passed. God has been protecting you. And this, we read this. The children are saying, we serve God, for he it is that brought us and our fathers up out of this land of Egypt, this land of enclosures, this land of bondage, the house of bondage it's called, where they was caused to serve in their prison houses under all these other teachings of men. Verse 18, and the Lord drove out from before us all the peoples, even the Amorites that dwelt in the land. Therefore we also will serve the Lord, for he is our God. And he drove out these Amorites. He drove out these enchanters. He drove out these false teachers with the truth. There's no other covenant made. We have the law of God. This is the knowledge. This is the understanding. This is our wisdom. This is our sword in our right hand. See, this is the shield we hold in our left hand. This covenant we made with God, the shield whereby we can withstand all the false teachings of men, for we know this is the sure stone. This is that which was placed. 19, and Joshua said unto the people, You cannot serve the Lord, for he is a holy God. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive you your transgressions, nor your sins. See, we will find out what Joshua's talking about. If they turn and serve these other gods, God's not going to forgive this. God's giving you a chance now to turn, and put down these idols, put down these things. Or you cannot serve God, because he is a jealous God. You cannot serve God and another image under him. You cannot do this. Make yourself no image. For in the day that he spoke to you out of the fire, you've seen no image. 20. If you forsake the Lord and serve strange gods, then he will turn and do you evil and consume you after he hath done you good. This is how he's going to use Israel as an example. He's going to do them good, and he's done them good. And then they're going to forsake Israel, because we see Joshua's already told him to put these gods down, because he has seen it already. He says he will consume you. You will be overtaken by these waters of truth in the end. And the people said unto Joshua, No, nay, no, but we will serve the Lord. And Joshua said unto the people, You are witnesses against yourselves that you have chosen you, the Lord, to serve him. And they said, We are witnesses. And this was the agreement they made that day with Joshua. This is the agreement God's wanting to make with you. Don't be scared to serve God. Don't be scared to be obedient to God's law, and be afraid to stand up in this world and understand. Don't be afraid to put down the teachings of men, whether it be sticks and stones or just their teachings. 23, Now therefore put away the strange gods which are among you, and incline your ear unto the Lord, the God of Israel. Do this and live. And the people said unto Joshua, verse 24, The Lord our God will we serve, and unto him, his voice, will we hearken, or will we listen. Unto God, not man. 25, So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day, and set them a statute and an ordinance in Shechem. And we would find this is only the same covenant, that they would listen to God and love the Lord their God, do after God, and obey his statutes and his ordinances, his law, that you might live. It is for your own good that you do these things. It's not going to put money in none of man's pocket. And Joshua wrote these words in a book of the law of God, and he took a great stone, and he set it up there under the oak that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. And this book that he speaks of is the book of Deuteronomy, that same book that was out inside of the Ark of the Covenant. There, inside that ark, were the 10 laws, these 10 teachings that God gave man. And of these 10 trees shall you partake of, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. This teachings of men. For in the day you partake of it, in that day shall you die. And Joshua said unto the people, Behold, this stone, this law, shall be a witness against us, for it hath heard all the words of the Lord which he spoke unto us. And it shall be therefore a witness against you, lest you deny your God, lest I use this law, this stone, against you. And it is a witness set there. And we call it as a witness against all those who teach lies. 28. So Joshua sent the people away, every man unto his inheritance. And they returned to their tents, the children of Israel did. And it came to pass after these things that Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. And Joshua was 110, and he gave up the ghost. And his work was done. And they buried him in the border of his inheritance, in Timnath-serah, which is in the hill country of Ephraim. on the north of the mountain of Gash. And this mountain of Gash is the place of shaking. And this Timnath Serah, what Timnath Serah means is consider to scrape. And this is where they would get the understanding to consider to scrape off that which has placed itself on the foundation rock of God. We will find that this is where the curse would establish itself on this bare rock. These 10 teachings that God give us as a witness. 31, and Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua and had known all the work of the Lord that he had worked for Israel. And these would be Joshua, all the elders that lived in the days, whose eyes had witnessed these great things that God had done. Our eyes can witness these same great things, for we can see them. 32. And the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up out of Egypt, buried they in Shechem, in the parcel of ground which Jacob bought of the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of money. And they became an inheritance for the children of Joseph. And we would find this story's documented, and we'll get to it. And Joseph did purchase there. And this, if we would read the book of Jasher, this would become the site of a standoff between Esau and the sons of Jacob later on. And Joseph means to add or to do again. And they buried there in Shechem. Shechem meaning back, before. And we'd find there, that's where they would bury the bones of Joseph that they brought up out of the land of Hos. 33, and Eleazar the son of Aaron died, and they buried him in the hill of Phinehas his son, which was given him in the Mount Ephraim. And Eleazar was the high priest. The one who has support is what Eleazar means. And Aaron, he was the son of the enlightened one. Phinehas means mouth of brass. And brass we would take back to the root of serpent, and the mouth of the serpent. All right, we're going to move on. I hope you've learned something. We're going to move on. This is where we would conclude the 24th chapter of Joshua, this great book of Joshua. Joshua having great symbology. There's many things we can learn from Joshua. We will remember this one. Before they went into Jericho, as they had crossed the Jordan River, these waters that would descend, and they had partaken of the first Passover in this great land. There they would see, Joshua would, this man who held a sword, who identified himself as the captain of hosts. Joshua said, "Who are you for? Our enemies are us." And he said, "Nay, but I have now come. Put your shoes off your feet." All right, we're going to move forward to the book of Judges. And here in the book of Judges, we're going to find out a little more about what's happened to the children of Israel and just what God intends to do. The prophecies are well written and documented here in this book, as they are in about every book we're going to go through. All right, I hope we see you in the book of Judges.